Today we're going to talk about this Meike 6 to 11 millimeter fisheye zoom lens. Full disclosure before we get started, this lens was sent to me for free so that I could do this particular review. Now, fisheye lenses has never been something that I've really been accustomed to, so it's been interesting to say the least to be able to utilize this. Up until this lens, the most wide open lens I ever had as far as the field of view was a 10 to 18 millimeter Canon lens. So this goes all the way down to 6 millimeters. So that's very interesting. Now, my lens is an X mount series for the Fujifilm line of cameras, but they do have one of these for Canon, Nikon, and Sony cameras as well. So mine actually has 3 rings on it. The first ring, if you're accustomed to Fujifilm cameras, is your aperture ring. You also have only manual focus in this lens, so you have a nice, really solid turning ring here for that. It says near and far, so it keeps it very simple. And then finally, you have your zoom ring at the top, which turns kind of tough as well, but I guess this could be good in certain circumstances, because if you are messing with one ring or the other when you're trying to focus in, you're not going to throw everything else out of whack. Now, out of the box, you do get a little canvas carrying case for this lens. It does come with the back lens cover. It comes with the top lens cover, which is rather large, but the reason is because it also comes with your lens cap here as well. So this particular shield actually comes off if you want it to, and for the 6 millimeter setting, it's probably best that you do that. So as far as the build quality, this thing is pretty solid, I feel like. I mean, it is sub $200, so I'm sure the stuff in here, namely the glass, is not the best quality stuff in the world, but overall this lens does a pretty good job. So let's take a look at some of the images so you know what I'm talking about. So this was one of the first images that I actually took with my new lens, and it was not the ideal lighting situations. Again, this aperture only goes to a 3.5, so not the best in low light situations. I had to use a 3200 ISO, and this image is pretty grainy. Now, I did shoot this in JPEG, so had I shot in RAW, maybe there'd have been a little bit more detail for me to work with there, and probably that's part of the situation. But this was shot at the 11 millimeters, and here is the same exact image shot at 6 millimeters. So you could see that you are getting this full-on circle effect. Everything is black all around it. But I did learn a really crafty way that you can still make this a pretty usable image without having this circle effect. So if you don't want to end up with just a profile picture, what you do is take your circular image, you go ahead and do a 1-to-1 crop within that image of your particular subject, so you get something like this. Now, I went as far as to go into the develop module of Lightroom and enable a profile correction. I found that the Moment lens company actually had a Superfish lens, and I just set it to that. So if we were to click that off, here's the look that we would get. You can see that it's a little bit closer, a lot more distortion, but if we enable that, it kind of zooms out a little bit and alleviates some of that distortion. Of course, Meike does not have a profile in here, but finding something pretty close to that, I think, works fairly well. Now, in an outdoor situation, I think the lens does pretty well. So this image is fairly sharp. I actually made sure to remember to manually focus in properly here. And I did the same thing. I cropped the image and I applied the distortion effect to kind of get some of that to go away. And there you have it. So we have our 6 millimeter cropped and our distortion effect turned on, so we can kind of alleviate some of that. So really not a terrible image. So now, would I recommend for you to buy this lens? Well, it's totally up to you. Fisheye and super telephoto like this is not something that I typically do very often. I do like wide lenses, and in fact, owning this lens now has showed me that I am perfectly content with an 18 millimeter, which is what's on my Fujifilm right now. I feel like that's wide enough to be able to do the things that I like to do. I always thought that having a more of a super telephoto lens was something that I wanted, but I've actually, in fact, learned that that's not quite it. However, there are a lot of creative uses for this particular lens in scenarios where I think it would work. But overall, I think it's a pretty decent lens. So if you're looking for something to buy that's, sub $200, just something pretty affordable to have fun with, I think it would be great. I do not see myself using this in really any professional scenarios. unless maybe I was doing some kind of concert photography and I wanted something that I was okay with having that raw, kind of gritty, grainy look, because you're not going to get super good low light images with this, but you could get some really cool artistic photos. So I wouldn't probably use this in a professional setting personally, but I would use it in more of a fun, artistic, creative way. So if you're into that super telephoto, this might be a good option, but I think there are probably better ones out there. But if you do want to try out this lens, there is going to be a link in the description box below, so you can purchase this on Amazon. It will be an affiliated link, so just know that in advance. But if you have one of these lenses, let me know in the comment section below what you think about it, or if you're going to purchase one of these or not. But I hope you enjoyed today's video, and on the next one, we're actually going to talk about another Meike product. This one was not sent to me, actually. I just bought this one about 2 weeks before I got this one. This is a 35mm prime lens, and this is one that I do recommend. So on the next video, we're going to look at some photos of this one and why I do recommend it, because it's sub $100, which is awesome. And it's actually something that I would probably use in some professional situations. So stay tuned for that video. And as always, be sure to create something new today.